A final site characterization protocol was reached with the landowner and Toronto Hydro, the next user of the site. Toronto Hydro announced its plans to occupy the site, and the cleanup project became a reality. Soil and groundwater samples were analyzed to determine the extent of contaminants. Then a workout plan was developed to divide the area into a series of discrete cells, which targeted specific contaminants for removal or treatment.
One of the mandates of my project team was to secure the consent of all the outside stakeholders that were impacted by the project. Specifically, we wanted to have the immediate residential and commercial industrial neighbors on side with respect to what we plan to do for these lands. As a result of our efforts to community outreach, if you will, the Community Environmental Protection Plan included our response to their concerns around air quality, specifically dust and the emissions of volatile organic compounds. It included site safety and security. It included truck movements, truck routes through their community, things like that, things that we could easily address and accommodate in our execution plan.
All the while, Shell was actively reviewing and revising a large array of cleanup technologies and strategies of meaning.
While the demolition was going on, we were actively looking at a number of different cleanup technologies that we could use to address the contaminants that we had at the site. We had a number of criteria, some of which were based on the time and the cost limitations that we had with the project that was underway. After an exhaustive survey, we ended up with a short list of 3 technologies, namely thermal desorption, bioremediation, and landfilling. And in the end, we settled on the thermal desorption option because of the time constraints.
Low-temperature thermal desorption was specifically used to treat hydrocarbon-impacted soils. As a result of passing the contaminant through a heat chamber, the soils were then rendered clean and safe for their eventual reuse on the site. For other soils impacted with heavy metals or pesticides, excavation and disposal to controlled landfill sites was the chosen cleanup process. Air monitoring stations measured dust and volatile organic compound emissions. Below-ground steel sheet piling was installed to protect the site from the threat of recontamination from possible off-site sources. Groundwater from the excavation was treated by carbon filters and declared to have met the city's sanitary sewer discharge standards. More than 55,000 tons of soil were excavated from the site. Clean fill was imported as required. Even the weather cooperated. By February 1995, the 4-month project was declared complete.
There are many sites along the north shore of Lake Ontario where former industrial uses and even past lake filling practices have created situations where in some spots soil and groundwater conditions create barriers to the next use of those pieces of land. It's really important as we move ahead looking at new industrial uses, green spaces, and other public uses that we bring forward environmentally responsible and cost-effective solutions to site remediation issues. The Trust was really pleased to be able to be involved in the Shell project in the Toronto Harbour area and play that facilitation role.
It was with a great deal of pride that Shell Canada delivered to the landowner and Toronto Hydro one of the most intensive remediation projects it had ever undertaken.
Because the cleanup that we did execute left some residual contaminants in place, there are, as a result, some enduring obligations for Shell. Those obligations include some long-term monitoring of the southwest corner of the property. Furthermore, there's a long-term contingent liability that Shell has to carry from this point forward.
The process of decommissioning the Shell site was a unique challenge in recycling lands into productive reuse following heavy industrial use. There have been very few projects like this one that have been successfully achieved. The many uncertain regulatory implications and a shortfall of practical understanding of how to do the job by all stakeholders added to the complexity of this decommissioning project.
To make this a successful project from the Ministry of Environment and Energy's point of view, we had 2 needs. The first was a defensible and rigorous science of a health-based risk assessment. The second was land use management and legal requirements wrapped around that science. to ensure the ongoing integrity in the long-term stewardship of the site. Ministry science and regulatory workers worked with other partners in this project to arrive at the solutions. I believe this project has provided an avenue for other sector companies in the decommissioning of their properties.
It is on this site that Shell Canada has now provided a clean and safe environment for the new Toronto Hydro Service Centre. It was a logical choice for Hydro because of its prime downtown location with easy access to both public transportation and highways and the availability of convenient local amenities. It is the workplace of the future where 1,100 Toronto Hydro employees will work daily. Shell has successfully demonstrated that an effective cleanup is possible in the Toronto Port Industrial Area. Shell Canada. Shell helps.